2024, the year when Steamboat Willie finally became public domain. Some guy paid $50,000 for a has-been hotel AMV. Don't ask. A bad cybersecurity update showed us what Y2K was supposed to look like, and a medical insurance CEO got shot down in the streets, and people rejoiced. Don't mess with Luigi. Look, you probably already know what this kind of video entails. Let's just get into how I spend way too much time playing video games. It's no secret that I love a good Metroidvania, but there's a distinct lack of 3D ones. Other than the 3D Metroid games, I can't really think of one. Maybe Jedi Fallen Order, but it's more of a Souls-like where you occasionally get a new ability. It's not the focus, so it's not quite the same, if that makes any sense. But in comes Pseudoregalia, that also happens to be a really good 3D platformer. Basically, you know all the usual platforming moves you have in a 3D platformer? You know, your high jump, long jump, wall kick, all that. You have to find them like you would in a Metroid game. And the game's world is really lenient and designed around non-linearity and sequence breaking. Even just playing the game blind, I was figuring out ways to get into places way sooner than I was clearly supposed to. And it was really cool. It has all the makings of a great non-linear game where you can just explore and figure out your own path to the end. It was really easy for me to just get lost in this place and try and figure out where to go next. Keep in mind that I didn't actually get lost, except like once, which is insanely impressive considering the game didn't have a map at the time. The underbelly is really dark and you can barely see like 2 feet in front of you. It's annoying. So combine that with no map and this place is just confusing to navigate through. That's the weird part. The lack of a map is obviously a bad thing for a game like this, but I didn't mind it. Every room in the game is unique enough to where I never felt lost, and it was easy to find my bearings most of the time. Luckily, it has a map now, so this isn't an issue anymore. It's pretty insane that this game was made by one guy in a few months, and for only $6 too. Like, sure, the game's only like 5 or 6 hours long, but I don't understand how this game isn't at least $10. Probably $15, honestly. Play this 3D platformer Metroidvania hybrid thing. It's a no-brainer for this absurdly low price. It definitely can't beat the low price of free, though. So they reimagined Celeste as a 3D platformer. In a week, no less. Celeste 64 is an actual game by the original developers. This isn't a fan game. It actually turned out to be a pretty cool game. They translated most of Celeste's mechanics into 3D really well. It took me a little bit of getting used to, but the game just had this really good flow to it once I got the hang of everything. I didn't get every strawberry, though, mainly because I assumed there was only 25 and not 30. But I did that one really hard B-side underneath the credits sign, and I was like, alright, I've had enough. It was a really fun romp, aside from that one stupid, annoying level that isn't even required. Might as well get another indie game out of the way. Lethal Company. It's a game where you run around weird-ass alien planets looking for junk to appease your corporate overlords. Like, this game somehow manages to be actually tense, but also being insanely funny. My first round with my one friend, and we lost the game because we were 1 credit behind the quota, and we were laughing for like 5 minutes straight. But also, whenever you run into something that responds to noise, everyone in the voice chat instantly goes silent and runs off in random directions to get away, and everyone gets lost. It's a really good balance between messing around with friends and actually attempting to survive long enough to not get fired. But then we added mods, and it's so insane that the Goku mod is actually unironically terrifying. Like, dude, you haven't lived until you barely escaped from an alien dog that just mauled one of your friends right in front of you on the egg carrier. The game doesn't have a ton of content yet because it's still in early access, but it's worth the $10 for a few fun nights with friends. People have been begging for a Persona 3 remake for years, so it's kind of crazy that we actually have one now. It does basically everything you would have expected. Better presentation, controllable party members, no more exhaustion, Tartarus is a little more interesting. It works. You even have these new super attacks that effectively make bosses have less health, which definitely made me realize that the bosses in the original were a little too damage spongy. All the social links are fully voiced too, which made me like the side characters a lot more. Kenji went from a creepy guy trying to get his teacher to sleep with him to just a stupid teenage boy being a stupid teenage boy. Just as an example. The voice acting in general is really damn good. Not that it was bad in the original, they just somehow managed to improve it while also recasting everyone. I don't really have a ton to say about Reload beyond video game good. I kind of like the original soundtrack more, but to say that Reload soundtrack is bad is to say that you're deaf. The only thing that I was really missing was the answer. Like, seriously, why have they gone so long without re-releasing the expansion that was in the Fez release of the game? Well, we finally got the answer as DLC, and I completely understand why they never bothered re-releasing it until now. So imagine Persona, but they took out all the social stuff. That's not necessarily a bad idea. It's just that you're going through another 100-ish floors of Tartarus with no breaks. And they forgot to rebalance the difficulty, so there's a few spots where you have to grind. At least in the base game, there was a fun challenge where you try your damnedest to get as much done as possible in one night at the same SP bar, but there's no penalty for leaving the desert doors. So you might as well just get a free heal whenever you have the opportunity to leave. Point is, it's boring. It was always boring. I'm shocked that they didn't try to do much to fix the answer. The best they could come up with was to make it 10 hours shorter. That's it. It really should have had some fixed layout dungeons to go through to break up the pace. Having areas with more interesting mechanics and set pieces probably would have made this way more fun to play. But with the way it is, you're just doing the same thing you've already been doing in the base game for another 20 hours. It's so funny that the new battle theme for the DLC is called Don't, and it has lyrics like, "Don't you make me do this." Is this a cry for help from the game designers? The song goes hard as always, but what do they mean by this? I wanted to play the answer to the end, but I only got about halfway through before I couldn't stomach this anymore. It doesn't detract from how good the base game is, but the answer is really one of those look up the cutscenes on YouTube kind of games. But speaking of DLC, Splatoon 3 finally got its single-player DLC, and I'll be honest, it's the only Splatoon campaign that I didn't enjoy. Not because I thought it was bad, but because I don't like roguelikes. I didn't know much about side order going into it, so I was surprised by the direction it took. You don't really have to worry about not being good enough to finish a run. You can upgrade the amount of lives and game overs you have, and it really trivializes the game. It just doesn't feel very compelling as a roguelike. A lot of Isaac and Hades runs feel drastically different from each other, even when you're using the same weapon or character or whatever. But each side order run feels basically the same. I guess I can feel a difference when I get a new power up, but I had a hard time trying to veer toward one particular playstyle over another. I just played the game normally, but with stat upgrades that didn't really make too much of a difference. Apparently the best strategy is to put all your upgrades into your drone to where the game basically plays itself half the time, but that's just boring. There's plenty of reason to come back to it since you get more stuff for clearing the game with different weapons, but that's only gonna get you coming back if you're already having a blast, which I was not. I should emphasize that most of my problems with the game is just me. I'm glad they tried something different with the side order. I just didn't like it. Despite the fact that I just complained about not liking roguelikes, I managed to find one that I actually do like. Balatro. It's a game that I never thought I would like. It doesn't sound fun on paper. You play poker hands, meaning increasingly higher score requirements, but in order to do that, you have to buy joker cards that give you multipliers and buffs, which just forces you to play in hyper-specific ways to make bigger numbers. Like, if you get ride the bus early on, it basically means you have to go out of your way to never play a face card. Or if you get throwback, you have to skip like every round you can just to bring the numbers up. This is just number must go up, the game. Despite how the game is always just playing poker hands and you always have the same goal, every run is wildly different, and sometimes you have bad luck and the game just screws you over. Like, you could have a run where you invest all your money into playing heart flushes and the game hits you with a boss blind where heart cores are useless. It's this cool mix of luck and skill that keeps it interesting. Balatro is all the thrill of gambling without the financial problems, because this game isn't actually gambling. It's a $15 indie game with no microtransactions. There's no real money involved in any of this. It's genuinely maddening that this game had trouble releasing certain countries and platforms just because it's poker. Meanwhile, there's pay-to-win games that are actually gambling disguised as something else that have no problems being allowed to exist. So please buy Balatro and support Local Thunk for making such a fun game. Well, the game's already sold like 3 million copies, so dude's got it made now, but still. Despite the fact that I just complained about not liking roguelikes, I managed to find another one that I actually do like. Pokérogue. Granted, this isn't the first fan game to turn Pokemon into a roguelike. I played Emerald Rogue for a bit, and while it is fun, I think my big problem with it is that each run takes like 6 hours. It's way too long for this kind of game. While Pokérogue takes like 4 hours, it also does a lot to keep the pace up. There's no overworld, the entire game is in battle. You can't just take your time and look at every encounter on every route, either catch it or move on. And because they keep stat changes in between battles, it has a different meta than the regular game. Stat buffing moves are basically required to beat the game with any reasonable amount of effort. We all went through this game with Excadrill and Skeledirge in our first win. Don't lie. It's a fun little game that has a lot of replay value from trying out different setups and getting all the egg moves through each Pokemon. Although it's a browser game, so please play it before Nintendo takes it down. Luckily, Pokérogue is open source, so I doubt it'll go down completely, but still, it's a fun afternoon waster. Although I'm sure Nintendo hates Palworld much more than Pokérogue. The first big release of 2024 wasn't some big name game. It was a random indie game I'd never heard of before it came out. Well, it released in early access, but you know what I mean. I wasn't actually planning on playing Palworld just because I wasn't really that into the monster designs that much. They looked a little too generic, almost like they're ripping off Pokemon too much. To the point where even the Pokemon company was like, wait, are we able to sue them over this? And then they figure out how to get them over software patents instead. So that's cool. After a few controversies, I figured that I would sit this one out. Maybe play it after it leaves early access. But Steam added this wacky new concept of Steam family sharing. So my Steam library went from like 300 games to like 550. Now we're at 830. This is so overpowered. If I'm gonna be criticizing Palworld, I might as well actually play it if I have free legal access to it. Honestly, I kind of expected this to be a Pokemon Breath of the Wild ripoff, but after playing it, it's actually really fun and shockingly creative. Basically, it's an open world survival base builder. Apparently like Ark, except actually interesting. But you collect monsters to automate resource gathering and crafting, and they go all the way with this concept. Different pals can do different things, like water types can grow your plants and move water turbines, or fire types help cook your food faster. And to keep things efficient, you actually have to treat them well, or else they start slacking off and don't want to do anything. So you make them beds and feed them and stuff. Luckily, they do most of this stuff on their own. It doesn't take long before you got a whole camp of dudes running around doing stuff, and I don't know, it's just satisfying to collect all these pals and see all this stuff get automated. They help out in combat too, but this is like the one monster collecting game where I don't care how they perform in battle. I'm more concerned about how I can make them do unpaid labor. It's just a really fun and satisfying gameplay loop. It's pretty easy to see why this blew up so quickly. Some of the pals definitely need redesign though. I know they're supposed to be Pokemon parodies, but some of them look a little too on the nose. Like there's this one cat thing that looks a little too much like a Galarian Meowth. Like, just change the mouth. That's all you really gotta do. I think the real issue is that there's already over 1,000 Pokemon, so if you wanted to make monsters with a similar design philosophy, you're bound to make some that look a little too much like the source material. I'm sure even Game Freak runs into the same problem constantly. Truly, The Simpsons did it of character design. It's really weird. A lot of the pals look pretty generic in screenshots, but in-game, they usually look a lot better. Most of these designs grew on me once I saw them in motion. Now that I'm thinking about it, a lot of people do the same thing with Pokemon. Remember when everyone thought Greninja looked stupid when all we had was a leaked screenshot? Yeah, same thing here. I was pretty surprised by how fun Palworld is. You can tell it's still early access, it's pretty janky and there isn't a ton of content here, but this has the potential to be a really good game. I probably won't pick this up again until it leaves early access and hits 1.0, but if I was having this much fun with a shitty pre-release version of the game, the finished product should be pretty great. If you're looking for a great game that's actually finished, Animal Well is probably the most unique game I played this year. It's one of those Metroidvania kind of games, except the game doesn't tell you anything. Like, at all. Like, who's this blob dude we're playing as? What am I even supposed to be doing other than wandering around? Why are there animals in this well? Who knows? You do figure out a main objective pretty quick, and I never found myself hopelessly lost. But aside from controls, you're just supposed to figure out everything yourself. I'm being vague with this game because it's like Outer Wilds where everything's a mystery, and spoiling that mystery kinda ruins the fun. By itself, there's a 6-hour game here, but then there's a post-game that keeps giving you new abilities that completely rethink how you're supposed to play the game, and suddenly you're like 20 hours in and still finding new stuff. Admittedly, I didn't play the post-game much, but at the same time, this thing gets so galaxy brain with what you're supposed to do that I'm amazed people figured all this stuff out within a week. I wouldn't even say that I regret looking up what happened, it's because I don't think I would have had the patience to dedicate myself to it. If you like puzzles and figuring things out for yourself, you will be in heaven. Animal Well is just a giant rabbit hole that keeps going deeper and deeper the more you play it. I'm one of the annoying Paper Mario fans. I played the first 3 games as a kid and loved them. I played Sticker Star and I hated it, to the point where I didn't play Color Splash and Origami King. I just don't understand how you can have such a good formula with the first 2 games and just throw it in the trash without a decent replacement. But through some divine miracle, Thousand Year Door was getting a remake, remaster thing, so I finally decided that I should at least try to play Color Splash. And I did enjoy the game at first. I was actually caught off guard by how I was having fun. But it didn't really last long. After about 6 hours or so, I stopped caring because there still wasn't much of a progression system, which made the battles feel pointless. Why increase my paint capacity when I can just avoid enemies instead? It only takes a few levels to feel like you have enough paint most of the time. If you like Color Splash, cool. I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it either. I just didn't care. This game made me feel nothing. But I didn't mind that I didn't care, because I knew I would be playing a game that I actually would like. Play Thousand Year Door. Please. I am begging you. I don't think the Switch version replaces the original, but it does have some nice quality of life improvements to make the game play a little better. I don't really have much to say about the remake, remaster thing other than video game good. It's just a really good game, and basically everyone agrees. Like, it's so nice having a Paper Mario game come out and everyone enjoys it. No arguing online about anything. Everyone's just like, ayo, this slaps. Yeah, it runs at 30 FPS, but it looks so good that it's kind of hard to care. The game never felt worse because of it. And this is from someone who replayed Thousand Year Door on GameCube a year earlier just because. Now all I can do is pray that they go back to this style instead. Because if the next Paper Mario game plays like Origami King or Color Splash, I'm just not playing it. I don't want to. Paper Mario 64 and Thousand Year Door are just more interesting to me as games. But at least we have Mario and Luigi again. More on that later. In the meantime, we have another weird role-playing game to talk about, even if it's actually a strategy game. Unicorn Overlord wasn't a game I expected to like this much. I played the demo and almost dropped 60 bucks on it right there. The best way I could describe it is that it's like Fire Emblem if it was real-time, but you can also pause the action at any time so that you don't have to rush your decision-making. Apparently it's pretty similar to Tactics Ogre, but I know literally nothing about it, so I don't know. The story definitely reminded me more of Fire Emblem because it's literally the same setup. The main character is a prince, an evil guy takes over the kingdom, you build up an army to take it back from the evil guy. Not that Fire Emblem owns the war story or anything, but it's definitely an easy comparison to make. Especially with the support conversations between characters. The game just has this really satisfying gameplay loop of exploring the map, finding new chapters and characters, and getting everyone stronger. You also put everyone into different squads, so it's fun to experiment and see what characters work well with each other. Until eventually you're setting up squads of 5 that shred everything they touch. If you like Fire Emblem Engage's approach, but the main story takes a backseat and makes the characters and optional dialogue more interesting instead, Unicorn Overlord is definitely worth checking out. Despite how much fun I had with the game, I didn't really have that much to say about it. It's just a fun game. Also, why'd they make the elves so hot? I've wanted to play Double Dash for what feels like eons. Growing up, I kept hearing about how it's the good one compared to Wii. Even nowadays, a ton of people on this have some kind of re-release. And as someone who's only played 8 and Wii extensively, I can see why people like it. It has a lot of unique mechanics that they never tried doing again. Normally, you just select a character in the weight class you want, so it's pretty hard to notice any difference between Toad and, like, Bowser Jr., as an example. At least to me. But in this game, every character has a unique item that's unique to only 2 characters. So I found myself picking characters based off that instead, which made characters feel way more unique. I'd normally never want to play as some random ass Koopa, but that's the only way to get triple shells, so suddenly I'm interested. And since you can have 2 different characters, at least do a lot more unique play styles. I thought that needing to switch drivers to get a second item was annoying at first, but at least a gameplay where you need to know when to switch, especially since you lose items when you get hit a lot of the time. It's a game that has a lot more nuance to how you play it than most Mario Karts, and all the different items and specials leads to complete chaos. Double Dash feels like every man for himself at times. On 150cc, everyone is out for blood. Baby Park is where boys become men. It was refreshing how hard the game is. I actually had to learn the courses and the heavier controls to win. Honestly, I kinda wish the next Mario Kart game plays more like this. Not because I necessarily think it plays better, I like this because it felt different. With 8 Deluxe, they basically perfected Mario Kart and gave it like 3 games worth of content with all the DLC. Whatever they do for the next one is gonna feel like a step down unless they make it different. Making a spiritual successor of Double Dash could be a good place to start. None of this is nostalgia talking here. Double Dash is just a fun game. Also, why do you have to unlock Toad? That's so weird. It just feels wrong. Okay, so it turns out they did not make a spiritual successor of Double Dash, as expected. Hopefully they make it feel different in some other way. I really hope this thing doesn't just feel like 8 Deluxe, but with less content. Now for a PS5 game that would have fit right in on GameCube. Sony's games the last few years have all just kind of blended together. Not that any of them are bad, it's just that when they're all high-budget movie games, they get boring after a while. So it's really funny that after the biggest flop in media history, they casually released a real Game of the Year contender with Astro Bot. It's sure as hell mine. Astro's Playroom was basically a PS5 tech demo, so to see that turn into a full game is a real treat. I haven't played a platformer this consistently good in years. Every section of this game is just fun. It's a joy to just move around and be in this game. It really reminds me of Super Mario Galaxy, to be honest. Just a bunch of well-designed linear levels that are great to go through. And it even takes place in space. It was very hard not to have a smile on my face as I was going through this. Everything in this game is just all whimsical and happy, and it just puts you in a good mood. Like all the collectibles of robots you have to rescue, they're just all fun little guys. Their designs definitely do look a bit generic, but seeing all these guys doing their own thing in the hub is really heartwarming and charming. You really learn to love these dudes by the end. And a lot of them are dressed up as other PlayStation characters. This is something that could absolutely be seen as a corporate move to get you to play other games, but they put them in spots that make so much sense it almost feels like a mini love letter to the history of PlayStation instead. Like, in an age where Sony feels ashamed of their legacy and being like, oh, we just don't have enough IPs, this game's over here completely embracing it, even making the deepest cuts possible, like Mr. Mosquito. Who remembers that game, honestly? Astro Bot ultimately feels like if you put Mario Galaxy, Kirby, and Smash Brothers into a blender, and it's just as good as that sounds. If I had any real complaints, some gadgets could have been used more, like that sponge and mouse one that changed her size only got one level each. It would have just been cool to use those more than once. The game's also not overly replayable. It's the same problem Mario Galaxy has. The level design is insanely good, but said level design isn't that flexible. Once you find everything in a level, there isn't any way to play the level differently. That isn't a bad thing, just something that makes it less fun to go back to. And honestly, these complaints are nitpicks more than anything else. Astro Bot is just a really damn good game. Some people say it's basically just an ad because of all the PlayStation characters everywhere, but they don't even tell you what game they're from. How is this advertising anything? And even if it is an ad, who cares? If all ads were this good, I wouldn't need uBlock Origin. I tried playing Factorio a little while ago, and I couldn't really get into it. It just felt too complicated for what it was, and it was easy for me to drop it. Satisfactory doesn't have this problem for me. It's the same kind of factory-making automation game, but everything's been kept dead simple. Probably because it's a 3D first-person game. It might have been overwhelming if things were too complicated. And honestly, this game is too good for my problem-solving monkey brain. It may take a lot of work and thought, but when you get everything working as intended and running efficiently, it's the most satisfying thing in the world. Satisfactory is a 10 out of 10 name. Like, this game just has all these satisfying animations and sound design that just makes everything feel good. I only played this for about 15 hours, but I feel like I stopped playing it subconsciously. If I kept playing, I probably would have never been able to get anything done ever. If you're the kind of person who struggles with procrastination and being productive, don't play Satisfactory. You'll never be able to do anything else. I got this in a Humble Bundle like 2 years ago, and I just narrowly avoided making the worst mistake of my life. It's a great game. Don't play it. So, your local Metroid enjoyer finally played Other M for the first time. Honestly, playing this game makes me feel like I'm going insane. I've heard about how blah Other M was for years, but I thought it was actually pretty good. Don't get me wrong, the story is a mess for all the reasons people complain about, but the actual game is a pretty enjoyable action game. Not necessarily a great one, but it was a pretty solid time that I, enjoyed. Like, it's obviously still a very fundamentally flawed game, but Metroid fans act like Other M killed their family. This is far from a bad time. Maybe people hate it so much just because it caused the series to go into a hiatus for like 7 years. It kind of goes to show how good of a series Metroid is if the bad one is just above average at worst. Well, who knows when I'll get around to reviewing the other Metroid games. Probably after Prime 4. But this will be a very interesting video when I get to it. I'm somehow a certified Other M enjoyer now. Since I was playing Other M, I figure I might as well try out the only other Metroid game I haven't played, Prime Hunters. I was really curious about it because I had heard nothing about Prime Hunters other than it has a really good multiplayer mode that I can't play anymore. Also, my DS came with a demo of it, but I could never figure out how to even play the game. I just went back to playing Mario 64 DS instead. Anyway, it's fine, I guess. It's like Metroid Prime if you took out all the non-linearity and world building and didn't try to do anything interesting. It reminded me more of Halo than Metroid, weirdly enough. I get that this was a DS game. It's really impressive that they managed to get this working on a DS, but the campaign just isn't very fun. You walk down mostly linear areas, fighting a lot of the same enemies and bosses, especially near the end because it starts devolving into teleporter mazes and respawning mini-bosses that you have to kill every other time you walk into specific rooms. Playing the game through Melon Prime DS to give it keyboard and mouse controls makes the game way less awkward to play, but that can't fix the bland level design. I didn't finish the game because I got bored. No wonder people only remember the multiplayer. Atlyss getting jump scared by Silex was pretty funny. Like, I'm still trying to process that I had more fun playing Other M than Prime Hunters. So, what happens when you put all of Atlyss's games into a blender and give it a fantasy setting? You get Metaphor ReFantazio, and it's kinda peak. I wasn't really expecting much out of this. I figured that it was going to be just another SMT game, which is by no means a bad thing. I just figured it was going to be something I'd already played before. Then a demo for the game came out, and everything just clicked instantly. There's no super long intro sequence before you get to the good stuff. There's maybe like 40 minutes of story to set things up, then it's just a non-stop thrill ride of the best stuff Atlyss has ever made. The plot is entertaining the whole way through and pretty much always interesting. There aren't any characters I don't like, and the gameplay is basically just digital Devil Saga mixed in with a Final Fantasy-ass class system. Metaphor is one of the most fun horde modes I've played too. It uses press turns like the mainline SMT games, so instead of changing the damage values, it just gives the enemies an extra press turn. There were so many times where I was playing this and noticed how much easier this would be if the boss just had one less turn. Like, the first boss is against this necromancer that keeps summoning zombies that are weak to light, but the only class with light skills is weak to the zombies. So when he has an extra turn after he summons the zombie has a chance to hit the healer and then he summons another one. If the zombie didn't have that extra attack, you could just one-shot the zombie with a light synthesis skill that Brawler has and just wail on the main guy. It's a fun challenge that only rarely gets bullshit, which makes the gameplay super engaging and never boring. Honestly, I didn't have any major issues with Metaphor. Like, I do wish that all the social links were fully voiced like they were in Reload, and the technical aspects of the game are clearly dated. This looks like a PS3 game, which isn't a bad thing in and of itself because the art direction easily makes up for that, but it also runs poorly and has terrible anti-aliasing. It's pretty clear why they switched to Unreal Engine for their other games. Metaphor is probably just too far in development to move everything over, but I didn't really care that much about this stuff. This was easily my second favorite game from last year. The only reason it didn't beat Astro Bot for me was because going through a fun 10-hour game in a few days is more satisfying to me than going through a 90-hour game in a few weeks. Luckily, the next game is much shorter. So for some reason, they decided to randomly make a Sonic Generations sequel like 13 years later, and it goes so much harder than it should. Shadow Generations feels like an apology to Shadow fans everywhere. They really just said, hey, what if we made a Sonic game except it's actually good? Like, really good. Now, I love Sonic, but basically every game post-Generations was just okay at best, with Mania and Frontiers being the exceptions. Mania was fantastic, but Frontiers was just pretty good. Shadow Generations actually improves on the Frontiers formula while also using the Generations template. You complete a bunch of mini challenges in a hub world, then go to the main stages for the good stuff. Frontiers had a bunch of smaller levels that were really forgettable for the most part, but Shadow has less levels that are probably the most well-crafted stages in the whole franchise. There isn't a bad level here. If you want to S-rank each one, you need to actually get good at them and figure out the right times to use Chaos Control to slow down time. It almost transcends 3D action platformer and becomes a character action speedrun game. Honestly, I didn't really like Shadow Generations at first, but after playing the stages more, it really showed how replayable all of them are, and it got addicting trying to S-rank everything. Although I didn't end up S-ranking either Radical Highway Act because it just felt like this impossible mountain after a while and I just gave up. Maybe I'm just bad at video games. Like, after playing the main stages like 3 or 4 times each, the worst thing I can say about this is that it didn't have a Shadow the Hedgehog stage for some reason. Shadow Generations is just awesome, straight up. Also, it comes with a free Sonic Generations port. Like, it's Sonic Generations. What could they possibly screw up about it? They did redo all the dialogue for some reason, but the story is so unimportant to this game that it's hard to care. It's just a better looking Sonic Generations. Except on Switch, don't play that version. It was fun coming back to this, though. Sonic Generations was already my favorite Sonic game, so Shadow Generations just cements it. I don't think they're ever outdoing this package, but if they're actually listening to feedback from Frontiers, the next Sonic game is gonna be crazy. I also played the 3DS version of Generations, just out of curiosity. It's definitely the Sonic Generations at Home edition of the game, but the modern stages of the play like Sonic Rush were pretty fun for what they were. It even comes with a time eater fight that isn't hot garbage. It's a pretty decent game, all things considered, but there isn't really much to say about it beyond, hey, this exists. Well, now it's Sonic and Shadow, so now it's time for Mario and Luigi. Mario and Luigi Brothership reminded me of how much I miss Mario RPGs. Good ones, I should clarify. I'm still an annoying Paper Mario fan. Honestly, I don't know why so many people seem to not like this game. It has a slow start, but only for like 2 hours, and it's really fun pretty much all the time. The game definitely has its weird decisions, like how Luigi feels more like an NPC that follows you around instead of you controlling both brothers at the same time. How the previous games controlled were definitely unorthodox, but it was pretty easy to get used to it, and it had this weird charm to it. Although I can see how something like that would feel archaic and weird to the new audience they would have on Switch. And I really don't like how you use A to confirm with Luigi on the battle menu instead of B. Now, that sounds weird to anyone who hasn't played a Mario and Luigi game, but it just makes you sometimes forget to switch back to the B button to attack with Luigi. It's such a little thing, but it made the game feel so much more cohesive. A is Mario, B is Luigi. But this stuff is pretty small, all things considered. This is the most fun I had playing a game like this since Dream Team, actually. The game is carried by its battle system. They made the combat feel good to play, and every enemy just feels plain fun to fight. Bosses are like that too. Each one is just fun to learn their attacks and take them down. And I love how we got a straight Mario and Luigi game with no extra gimmicks. It's just Mario and Luigi. No babies, no Bowser, no Dream World, no Paper Mario, just the bros. Adding all this stuff is cool and keeps things fresh, but over the years this felt less about them and more about whatever weird twist they cooked up instead. The game does have its twist, with Ship-Shape Island being this weird island that flows around the ocean like a ship. Basically, you're encouraged to do side quests while this thing sails around to his next destination. It adds a fun time management system when you're revisiting old areas. So Brothership keeps the gameplay twist the series has always had, but puts it into the background instead of making it part of the combat. And if you don't like the time management, you can just make it go faster and ignore it, so do whatever you want. The issues with the game only started popping up as it went on. The other games are maybe like 20 hours at most, but this one's 40. And it didn't really take advantage of the longer runtime. Every time you thought the game was just about over, there was still more. It just kept going. I don't give scores, but if I did, the length basically took the game from a 9 down to a 7. I enjoyed what I played, but if it was half the length, it would have been so much better. But Brothership shows that not every new game needs to be the best in the series. I'm fine with a new, enjoyable entry. They can't beat Bowser's Inside Stories, so why should they even try to? Brothership is definitely nowhere near my favorite in the series, but it was a fun time. That should be enough. Mario and Luigi was an obvious thing for me to play, but here's more a curveball. Back in the day, I loved Overwatch, which may be surprising if you know me and how I don't vibe with competitive multiplayer games very much. Or it may not be surprising considering how much I love Team Fortress 2. The summer Overwatch came out, that was basically all I played. In an alternate reality where I had a better computer at the time, I probably would have started out as an Overwatch streamer, which is a very cursed thing to think about. I was a different person 8 years ago. But over time, the game got worse and worse as they catered more to the competitive scene as opposed to just trying to make a fun game. So you ended up having to pick your role in advance just for quick play. The queue you go into to have fun. And then they came out with Overwatch 2, which was basically just a monetization refresh. And now I can't play the game I paid $40 for anymore. Like, this is the game that popularized loot boxes, and then they made the monetization even more predatory. Cool. So yeah, Overwatch was really fun until they went and ruined it, and I went back to playing Team Fortress 2. All this is to say that Marvel Rivals feels like what Overwatch used to be. Now, putting a bunch of superheroes into a team-based hero shooter sounds kinda stupid on paper, but it's shocking how well it works in practice. And the game's obviously an Overwatch clone, more or less, but it's also pretty insane how it still plays completely differently. Like how there's some characters like Iron Man and Storm that can literally just fly infinitely. And there's plenty of melee characters, which sounds like a bad idea in a shooter, but then there's Iron Fist being insanely good. You know, I really like how they didn't just put in all the most popular Marvel characters either. Like, there's plenty of well-known characters like Spider-Man, Star-Lord, Hulk, Thor, Captain America, etc. But then you've got some really deep cuts like Squirrel Girl, or Luna Snow, or Jeff the Land Shark. Like, if you knew who Jeff was before this game, you're either a massive comic nerd or you're lying. Honestly, I don't really have a ton to say about this game. It's just fun. And it's nice to have a game like this that feels more like it's trying to be fun rather than cater to a much more niche competitive audience. I don't strongly dislike Overwatch. What makes you say that? My only real problem with it is that I could use more tanks. That's pretty much it, coming from a guy who just casually plays it every now and then. Luckily, I'm nowhere near as addicted to this as I ever was Overwatch. After a few weeks, I only have like 15 hours of playtime, where I was probably like 50 to 60 hours deep into Overwatch by this point. I also have zero desire to spend any money on the microtransactions, which is wonderful. Yeah, there's skins and battle passes because it's a free-to-play game, but I genuinely don't care about any of it. The base character designs are so good that I'd rather just play with all the defaults. And the game is so non-predatory about it that you could go dozens of hours without even realizing there's a store to buy stuff from. But who knows how long it'll be before they ruin this game, so we might as well enjoy it while we can. And when it does go bad, we just go back to TF2. All roads lead back to Team Fortress 2. They finally finished the comics. What a time to be alive. So now I'll tell you about how it took me like 3 months to get to playing Echoes of Wisdom. Mainly because I wanted to play Metaphor more. But yeah, we finally have a Zelda game where you play as Zelda. We finally have a good Zelda game where you play as Zelda. They definitely went in a weird direction with it, which I actually really vibe with. They could have just made a regular Zelda game with magic-based abilities instead of getting new items, but they instead made a game where you spawn objects to solve puzzles. At least through a game where basically every task turns into a puzzle. What can I summon across this gap? What enemies can I summon to defeat these enemies? It's a really obtuse and weird playstyle, but it starts to become second nature pretty quickly. While there does come a point where you just spam the same few echoes the whole time, it just comes down to the same problem Tears of the Kingdom has. I'm not creative enough for this game. Building a staircase out of beds ain't stupid if it works. Physics be damned. Old bed, my beloved. You definitely can be more creative with the solutions, which will probably give this a ton of replay value, but I don't really care that much. I had fun anyway. My only real problem with the game is that the combat's pretty boring. You summon enemies to fight for you, so you just stand back and watch stuff happen instead of doing things yourself. You can give yourself Link's abilities temporarily, but it doesn't last long enough to spam it, and magic is hard to come by, so you have to make it count. It's pretty much there for when the AI is annoying. I know there's a lot of older Zelda fans that want the series to go back to how things were before Breath of the Wild, but given this new style of gameplay, a traditional 2D Zelda game sounds boring now, and I think that's the problem with the old Zelda formula, at least in Nintendo's eyes. They've already done basically everything they can with that style of game. This style is completely new territory. There's still so much they can do with it, and I really want to see what they come up with next. Although when it comes to puzzles, Mind Over Magnet is pretty interesting. It's a game about magnets, as Game Maker's Toolkit kept saying in its devlog series. You know, it's pretty cool seeing one of those game design video essay people actually trying to make a game themselves. It's even cooler that it actually got finished. There's definitely a whole rabbit hole of game dev YouTubers that talk about the game development process while they make a game, and while it's pretty interesting, I haven't seen many that actually end up with a finished product. So even if Mind Over Magnet was total ass, which it isn't, thankfully, huge respect for Game Maker's Toolkit for actually seeing through the end. Making a game is not easy. Anyway, this game's a puzzle platformer where you use a magnet to interact with the environment. It's a very Portal-like game where you see how far a single main mechanic can be stretched out and used in interesting ways. You have to sit around and think long enough to get you to try different things to see what works, but you never feel like tearing your hair out either. Even during the 1 or 2 times I felt stumped, I never felt frustrated. You get those moments that make you feel like a genius without ever feeling like the biggest dumbass on the planet, which is a really difficult balance to achieve in a puzzle game like this. My only real issue with the game is that it just ends. It's not even that the game feels too short, it just ends out of nowhere without any kind of natural conclusion. The final world finally gives you 2 magnets, and it feels like this big moment, like the game's about to get crazy, but the game doesn't do anything with the extra options. You do like 4 more levels and an easy level, then it's over. It definitely needed to go on for maybe like 10 more levels just to get real use out of both magnets. I guess this may be because Min can switch polarity, and she's also small enough to be thrown, so she's straight up better than Magnus. I don't know, maybe making a switch that only Magnus can activate due to him being heavier would have been a good way to differentiate them. You know, did he mention something like that in his videos? I don't remember. Or maybe he still could have had the 1 magnet, but it doesn't introduce any new mechanics, so it could have just felt like a big test of everything you've learned. That's the thing about this game. It introduces ideas, but it doesn't really iterate on them. Like, there's these propeller things that can be used as switches, but it can also be used to fling objects. The flinging is only used like twice. It could have led to some interesting puzzles, but it's barely used. I think the game could have benefited from having less mechanics that are more flexible with puzzle design, so you can spend less time teaching the player how things work. Because when you play a game that's only like 2.5 hours long with no real gameplay or story payoff, it feels unsatisfying. It's still a game I had fun with, but if the final world didn't feel so half-baked, I think it would have been a really great time. By contrast, Emio, Famicom Detective Club, did not skimp on its ending. It wouldn't surprise me if you've already forgotten about this game. It had this really interesting teaser and announcement, but when people found out it was a sequel to an NES visual novel and not a horror game, people lost interest. Also, it costs $50. I haven't played the first 2 games, mainly because they're remakes of 2 NES games for $60 that have never gone on sale, but after playing Emio, I might have to check them out sometime. Maybe. Now, the game can definitely be a bit awkward because the UI still feels like an NES game. Like, you often have to ask people the same question over and over to continue the conversation. You get used to it easily enough, but it can ruin the pacing sometimes. Oh, you wanted me to ask a different question so you can continue talking? What? There's also a few times where I have to awkwardly look at the character you're talking to instead of just talking to them more. And the game has full voice acting, but only in Japanese. So in a game where I just sit and read everything, I had to turn it down to like 30% so it wasn't distracting. But if you can get past those minor annoyances, you have a really good and interesting story here. It's pretty much mystery after mystery that just keeps piling up until you have this legendary payoff that answers literally everything. It does have a slow start, but it just keeps getting better and better as it goes along. Although I suppose I should actually explain what this thing is about. Basically, a few private investigators are trying to find a guy that killed kills people and puts paper bags over their heads. That's mostly it. Like, I'm being vague about all this because I'm one of like 3 people that actually played this game. I won't dare spoil anything that happens because it has one of my favorite game endings like ever. Endings are really hard to write. I struggle to come up with one in every single one of these videos, including this one. So to go through a story where the ending is the best part is just really awesome. These games make me wish that Nintendo wasn't so stubborn with their pricing. Like, yeah, Mario, Zelda, Animal Crossing, and Pokemon are gonna keep selling no matter what, but I feel like a lot more people would be interested in a game like this if it was cheaper. You can get stuff like Ace Attorney and Danganronpa for way less, so Famicom Detective Club is a hard sell by comparison. Normally I tell you to go play this game, but yeah, $50 for a niche game in a genre that's usually pretty cheap is hard to recommend to people. But if you take the plunge anyway, you won't be disappointed. If $50 is too expensive for you, let's move on to something that goes for sandwich prices. Windowkill is probably the most creative game I played this year. Did you ever look at your computer desktop as a kid and play around with the actual windows in it? Maybe draw stuff in paint and pretend like they're all doing stuff? Well, what if we made a whole game like that? Windowkill takes place on your desktop, and you have to shoot the window borders to expand the area that you're allowed to play in. It takes full advantage of the idea of playing in multiple windows, with you getting these special windows you can move around and continually damage enemies that go inside of it, or one that just acts as a way to always make that area visible. There's even one boss where you have to keep clicking the X on its window to kill it. The game runs pretty bad because Windows clearly wasn't designed to do something like this, but it's also insane that they managed to make it work this well. Luckily, it has options for fake desktop windows, which makes it run way better. Now, it's a pretty generic twin-stick shooter once you get past this whole gimmick, but it's such a fun idea that it's executed about as well as it could have been that it's hard to complain. Especially for $5. Windowkill won't keep your attention for long, but it absolutely has that early 2000s old internet Windows XP energy that I'm all for. I probably would have played something like this on cool math games in study hall. Atlyss is another game that feels like something you'd play using AOL dial-up internet. It's this Diablo-like third-person action RPG with online co-op, and it's a lot more fun than it looks. It's supposed to be inspired by old MMOs like Phantasy Star Online, has a pretty big multiplayer element, but I was playing the game in single player and was having a pretty fun time completely on my own. It really scratches that RPG power growth itch for me. You're pretty much always getting new stuff from loot and skills, and you notice the difference almost immediately. The movement in this game is really fun too. Despite not exactly being a platformer, it's one of few non-platformers where it feels good to just move around. And this is for a game that's in early access and apparently only about a fourth of the way done. This has the potential to be a really good game, and for only $10 too. Even better that I got it on sale for $6. Aside from not having a ton of content from it still being early access, I think my only real problem with the game is that it's a little too horny with its character designs, which makes it a lot harder to tell my friends about this great little dopamine hit. No, I'm not a furry. Please play this game. Atlyss actually has really cute anthropomorphic character designs, but then they decided to get a little too wacky with the proportions and also gave the character creator a boob and ass side slider. Xenoblade X could never. Although credit where credit is due, this is the only game I've ever played that lets you turn off the jiggle physics. But if you can look past the creative liberties taken, it's a really fun game so far. Or maybe you're into female arousal. Whatever. Last but not least, it's time for the games I didn't really have much to say about bonus round. The sequel to Peak Cinema released. First, Turnip Boy committed tax evasion. Now, he's robbing a bank. He cannot be stopped. He won't rest until he's committed every crime possible. Rob's a bank is in a weird situation. It's quite a bit longer than the first, and it's more fun to play as a game, but it's not as entertaining as tax evasion. The game is still more or less a shitpost as a fun enough time, but it definitely doesn't leave as much of an impression. Orbo's Odyssey is another weird game you might not have heard of. It's a game where you zip around as a guy without arms trying to find enough gears to make a robot arm so he can open a door. It's so dumb that you can't help but love it. Now, it'll only last for about an hour, but it's such a fun hour that it's hard to complain about how short it is. Another weird 3D platformer you might not have heard about is the Big Catch Tacklebox. It's basically a free demo for a game that's coming out in the future, which is why I didn't initially play it, but it's also a separate game from the main game, so I figured I might as well check it out. Like, they basically just made a 6-ish hour open world 3D platformer that's based around a fishing rod and released it for free. It's crazy, and also crazy good. Having your main tool be a fishing rod is a weird idea, but they make it work really well. The game just feels good to play and has a lot of fun parkour puzzles. It's fun to figure out how to get from one place to another. My only real gripe is that some of the areas are too big, and if you miss one jump, you have to replay a big chunk of the level to get back to where you were before. It reminds me why Mario Odyssey let you fast travel between checkpoints. Wasn't really that big of a deal though, especially because the game's free. But I hope they keep that in mind for the full paid game. Alright, let's get all the 3D platformers out of the way. Penny's Big Breakaway. It's a new game by a lot of the guys that made Sonic Mania, and it's fine. I just couldn't get used to the controls. You fling this yo-yo around, and it just had a hard time clicking with me. The level design felt a bit cluttered too. I can't decide if it wants to be a speedrun game like Sonic or more of a collectathon like Mario, and it just ends up being good at neither. I think it's more fun to race to the end and not bother with any of the collectibles, but when you do that, you just skip half the obstacles. I don't know, Penny's Big Breakaway is a well-made game with a really good visual aesthetic and soundtrack, but I just did not have fun playing it. I hope their next game is something a little more orthodox, or at least more streamlined. Super Mario Bros. 3 is a game that I have obviously played before, but I never finished it until last year. After being disappointed by Wonder, I started to question if it was just Wonder or if I just didn't like 2D Mario. So I decided to play the one that everyone worshipped back in like 2010. And it was honestly a pretty fun time. I liked it quite a lot more than Wonder. It's crazy looking back on how bland the new Super Series felt with its aesthetics and level themes, because this game shows how weird Mario always was. Yeah, let's give Mario a frog suit that makes you swim faster underwater. Let's have a level where you have to move left just to make you feel uncomfortable. Let's make an angry sun that chases after you. I wouldn't call Mario 3 life-changing playing this today, but it definitely feels like one of those games I should have played eons ago. We definitely got a weirder Nintendo-adjacent game this year, in the form of a spiritual successor to the Zelda CDI games, and it was promoted by Nintendo. What timeline is this? Arzette the Jewel of Faramore is as stupid as it sounds. You're playing a Zelda CDI ripoff, I think made by the guy who made the CDI remasters. Except it's actually good, which is the craziest part. I mean, it's not amazing, it's maybe like an 8 out of 10 at best, but it's so hilariously charming and well put together enough that you can't help but have a good time. Honestly, I've kind of stopped caring after about an hour and a half, but this game proves that every game has its fans. Some guy loved the CDI game so much that he tried his damnedest to continue their legacy. And that's beautiful. Another Crab's Treasure is definitely another weird game released last year. It's basically a Souls-like that isn't depressing and feels like everything wants to kill you. It's a lot more whimsical and humorous, which makes the genre a lot more approachable. Just having a game like this that doesn't feel like it hates you is very refreshing. It helps that this game isn't nearly as hard as Dark Souls. Don't get me wrong, Another Crab's Treasure still kicked my ass, but it never felt like total existence is pain, you will suffer Dark Souls hard, you know? Like, if you're interested in Souls-likes but don't want to jump headfirst into a game that was made for masochists, Another Crab's Treasure is a pretty good game to get into the genre with. This game shows there's definitely a market for a game like Dark Souls that's less demanding. Instead of complaining that Elden Ring is too hard, again, play this. You can even give Krill a gun. Link cannot have a gun, which is rather unfortunate. In an attempt to play the 4 Zelda games I haven't played yet, I tried playing Oracle of Ages. Emphasis on tried. The game does a lot of cool stuff with switching between the past and present, but it just didn't keep my attention. I don't know, I got halfway through the game, I lost interest. It happens. Anyway, Webfishing is like one of those old chat room games you'd play as a kid on nick.com or something like that. Like, you just stand around and fish and talk to people. That's mainly it. And it's way more entertaining than it sounds. It's such a nice vibe to just be in. People playing it are super chill and just love talking about the dumbest things possible. It's just a very relaxing atmosphere and gives you something brainless to do while you talk to friends or watch TV or something. And finally, Rat Shaker. Absolute cinema. Anyway, here's a tier list of the stuff I played if you're curious about that. And now, a moment of silence for the games I wanted to play but didn't, for one reason or another. Princess Peach, Showtime. 9 Souls. Bow, Path of the Teal Lotus. Berserk Boy. Black Myth, Wukong. UFO 50. Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. Thank goodness you're here. Dragon Quest III, HD 2D Remake. Anton Blast. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Yellow Taxi, Goes Vroom. Tiny Glade. Stellar Blade. 1000 Times Resist. This is the part where I talk about stuff I'm looking forward to playing in 2025, but honestly, I'm more excited to play random-ass games I've been meaning to play for ages instead. Like, I'm obviously gonna play Xenoblade X Definitive Edition, Doom the Dark Ages, Pokemon Legends ZA, and Metroid Prime 4. But honestly, I think I'd rather sit around and play stuff like No More Heroes, Hotel Dusk, Eco, and Ace Attorney. Games that I've been meaning to play for who knows how long. Metroid Prime 4 has a release window, though. I'm still trying to process that. And you know, I could write about what 2025 looks like and that hopefully this year is better than the last, but honestly, why bother? Everything feels like it's getting worse year by year, and at this point, it's hard to tell if my theoretical grandchildren will even live long enough to have grandchildren of their own. It's so easy to get caught up in how bleak the current future of the world looks and just lose the energy to do anything. What's the point of doing something when it's unclear what society will even look like by the end of next year? But I realized something about 8 months ago. If you want to improve yourself, sitting around doing nothing doesn't solve anything. If you have a dream, something you want to do in life, start now. No one's getting any younger. The passage of time comes for us all at some point. Start that YouTube channel, write that book, make some music, develop that game. Whatever it is, just do it. I make it sound so simple when I put it like that, but it doesn't have to be complicated. All this stuff takes time, sure, but if you don't have anything you're looking forward to doing, anything that makes you want to get out of bed in the morning, then what's even the point of living? I don't know what happened about 8 months ago, but I'm tired of sitting around waiting for my life to start. I finally want to do something with it, and it's the best I've felt in a long time. So who knows what 2025 has in store for any of us? I sure as hell don't. There's so much that I want to do this year, in and out of YouTube, and I can't wait to see where it takes me, if anywhere. It's been fun. Have a great year, everyone.